Hey everybody, welcome back to the vlog. Thank you so much for joining me once again for tea time. Today we have some focus. I love this stuff. That gives you that little bit of zing in the morning. I love this. This is good. So guys, I hope you're enjoying some tea, maybe some coffee, maybe a little bit of hard alcohol. Not too bad, I guess. It's kind of morning, but then again, it's afternoon somewhere out there, and you guys are not just watching me from here on the East Coast of the United States. A lot of you are overseas. So have some ale, maybe some rum. So guys, today I want to talk to you a little bit about life before Adobe. You know, I am the guy that came up with the whole life after Adobe, cutting the cord, and that movement has been doing unbelievably amazing. A lot of you guys have been asking me for more and more content regarding life after Adobe, cutting the cord, and alternatives to Adobe Software, so that you can buy something and not have to rent it ad nauseum forever, like I always say. So today it's going to be life before Adobe. Now, let me just say that this stems from an article that I read over on F-Stoppers by, I think it was Clinton Lofthouse, his name was. And the article was entitled, Why We Should All Be Grateful for Adobe. You know how I feel about Adobe. Now, let me just preface it. If you're new to this channel, you probably don't know it, but I am unbiased as they come. I don't like Adobe. There's certain things that I don't like about them, but I'll tell you that they do create some really great software that I have been using for 15 plus years. I no longer use their software because I did cut the cord, but we'll get into it a little bit. And I just want to start out with that, just so you know that I'm not just some guy that's just ranting about something they just absolute hates. No, and never used, because a lot of people do that also. I used it for almost a couple of decades. So let me start out by saying, life before Adobe. Where were we? A lot of people look at it as like, oh, there was like nothing before Adobe. Let me tell you, when I went to art school, I went to the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale. And it was back in the early 90s, late 80s, okay? So it was a long time ago. I'm an old man. Now, let me just say, Photoshop, for example, wasn't made until like 1987 by a couple of brothers, okay? And then finally it was called Photoshop or Adobe Systems back in 88. So when I was going to school there, it just came out. We weren't using it. It wasn't in the schools. We were still in the industry using Veritype machines and actually putting the type out there and using rubber cement to glue it on to surfaces that then take photographs off to make plates. So it was not a thing back then. And that was in 88. Like I said, 88 Adobe Systems, the name was invented. Prior to that, some people don't even know it, but Photoshop was actually called Image Pro. Okay, so there's been a long history for Photoshop. They've been around for a long time. Adobe's been around for a long time, but there's other software that's been out there even longer that people just forget about. One of them, as you can see back here, it's called PC Paintbrush. That software came out in 1984, guys. 1984. All right, this is before the two guys even thought about Photoshop. All right. 1984. Then came Deluxe Paint in 85. That's another one that is an oldie, but a goodie. It was around for quite some time. Then it went into MacPaint. Now, of course, Macintosh finally had a great system to be able to use for doing any type of photo editing. Then ImageMagick came out right around 1990. You have Corel Painter in 1991. You hear that name? Corel Painter, 1991. Very interesting. Keep this in mind, all right? Remember, Adobe Photoshop CS or Creative Suite didn't come out until 2002, I think it was. Remember, the first Photoshop was in 1988, 1989, somewhere around there. So literally 91, a couple years later, Corel came out with Corel Painter. Then Corel came out with PaintShop Pro, which was an incredible success in 1992. After that, we see the GIMP really take hold of the free market, where people can actually get a piece of editing software like GIMP in 1996 that was 100% free. It was very close to what Photoshop and what Corel was doing. Then a big change happened. Serif came out with their software called Serif PhotoPlus in 1999. 1999, guys. This is 10 years after Photoshop came out. Serif came out. That's 21 years ago. Do you know who Serif is? I was talking about them in a couple of videos ago about Serif's Affinity Photo, Affinity Designer, Affinity Publisher. All right? As you can see, Serif has been around a long time, 21 years. Then, of course, we have iPhoto, which Mac came out with, Apple came out with in 2002. You have Krita, another free piece of software right around 2005, and on and on and on. I can just make a list of like 100 of them. Okay, so there has been a lot of software that came before Photoshop and a lot of software that came around the same time that people are using. Now, a lot of folks don't understand or know that Adobe is not the #1 software out there. Adobe Photoshop's not the #1 software out there everywhere in the world. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people think very regional. Okay, and I wish that people would kind of break out of that a little bit. If you're in the United States, yeah, Adobe is the #1 software. Okay, Adobe Photoshop, for example. If you go to Europe, it's not. Guess what is? Corel. And people in Europe are like, yeah, what are you, stupid? We know that. Well, a lot of people here in the US don't know that. They think that it's Adobe and that's just it. And when I went to school, that was the thing. If you didn't know Adobe, you weren't going to get a professional job out in the market. Okay? That's when Adobe just got out there, started getting that stronghold. Okay? When we were actually in school proper, it wasn't even in the school itself. But by my last year, it really got in there and people were like, oh, you need to learn this. Okay? And that's when a lot of the companies started using it. So, just to kind of give you a little bit of a background of what's going on. So let me read a couple of statements that Clinton said in this article, why we should all be grateful for Adobe, and then have a little bit of discussion about it. I think it's fascinating how everyone views things a little bit differently. So, one of the statements that he said is, has Adobe made mistakes recently? Yes, but we're all human. Okay. He also states, you might look at a company like Adobe and focus on the negatives, but that says more about you than it does them. He attributes his success and opportunities afforded to him to basically learning Photoshop 8 years ago. Very interesting. He also states, all it took was one spark of creativity, a camera, and a piece of software. That same piece of software that people like to downplay and berate. If it was not for those folks at Adobe putting their blood, sweat, and tears into Photoshop, my life could have been drastically different. He also says one of the main issues people complain about is subscription models. For just over £10 per month, you can get both Photoshop and Lightroom. This is absolutely the case. He also says by bringing Photoshop to a subscription model, Adobe leveled the playing field. Now, I agree with this statement 110%. When Adobe came out with Photoshop, it was like $200, $300, $400, $500. All right. And then you went into the suite, and then to buy the suite, you were at like $1,200, $1,500, $1,800, depends on what you got. All right. So it was very cost prohibitive to use Adobe software. And now the playing field is leveled, and anyone could use Adobe software. He's 110% correct with this. He also says the next time you sit at your workstation pushing pixels, retouching, creating art, just take the time to think how all this is possible. What other piece of software have liberated so many artists, made it possible for everyone with a little ambition and creativity to change their life? And finally, he says, with the world in a current state of emergency, now is the time to learn, a time to be grateful, and a time to harness the power of being creative. So, I love this article, okay? Now, do I think he has it 100% right? No. Do I think he has it 100% wrong? No. I really like that he gives thanks to a specific company for basically giving him the leg up. Now, the problem that I have with it is a lot of folks out there are always, no matter what, circling the wagon. All right? I'm not that guy. If I pick a piece of software, I'm not going to tell you that that software is the best thing and that you should get it. I'll tell you that I like it, I think it's the best because of what I do with it. You get whatever works for you. So many people will buy a camera, buy a piece of software, or buy whatever, a car brand, and then circle the wagon and just make it such to a degree that they are almost validating their purchase. Now, is he doing that here? I don't think so. But a lot of people do. You'll see it with all the fanboys. They buy a Sony, all of a sudden every other camera is crap and the Sony is the best. Or someone buys a Canon and then they'll tell you all about their dual pixel AF and your AF is just garbage, or whatever the case might be. This is just human nature, all right? But with this article, like I said, some of this stuff I agree with 100%. Now, some of the stuff that I don't is when he basically makes the statement that his creativity and his success is based on Adobe. Well, maybe it is, but it might not be for a lot of other people. Perfect example is the folks that are in Europe that are actually using Corel and not Adobe more often than not. Okay, are they any less of professionals than people using Adobe? The answer to that is 100% no. Matter of fact, one of the reasons I came out with the whole thing of life after Adobe cutting the cord was to dispel the myth that you have to be a Adobe user to be a professional. It's freaking ridiculous. But that is what was ingrained in us as we came out of photography and graphic design school. You need to pick up Adobe, you need to be on Adobe, if not, you're not going to get a job. And honestly, at that time, that really was the case. But today, with all of the alternatives, it is no longer the case. There is a lot of software out there that you can pick up that is a one-time purchase that you don't have to pay ad nauseum for, and that will do the same or close to the same job, okay? And it might actually be better for the job that you're doing. A perfect example is with Affinity Photo now. Affinity Photo, I would say, is as good as Photoshop, okay, for what I do with it. Is it as, let's say, encompassing as Photoshop? Does it have all of the little nooks and crannies that Photoshop has and all of the things? No, it doesn't. But for the majority of the people, I would say 90+%, Affinity Photo is probably good enough. Right now, it's like half off. You buy it for $25. And what he's saying is $10 a lot in the scheme of things per month? No. But the thing is, it's per month. You got to understand, it's not a $10 purchase. It's a $120 purchase every year, or £120, however you want to do it. If you're in Europe or here, okay? It is forever. It is a $240 investment after 2 years. That's just it. It's a $480 investment after 4 years. And this is what happens. So people kind of get it twisted a little bit. Yes, it's a cheap initial purchase, let's say. But the thing is, it's a lease, it's a rent, it's not a purchase. You don't own nothing. And I can attest to you that if you stop your membership, your subscription, that software stops immediately. Okay? That's just it. So a lot of folks out there really like alternatives that they can buy. And Affinity is one of them. But like I said, there's a ton that have been out there forever. PC Paintbrush. Do you know how many people were using PC Paintbrush way back in 1984? 4 years before Photoshop was even thought of? All right? It was a lot. There's a lot. So there was a lot of life before Adobe. And there continues to be a lot of life after Adobe, after the cord is cut, and you do pick up alternatives. And I think this is a perfect article for you to read. Go take a look at it over on Fstoppers, read through it. And the idea, even in the title, why we should all be grateful for Adobe, I think is a little bit, you get it. You get it. Anyways, I don't like to down talk anyone because I'm not that guy. But in this case, when I look at this, there's a lot of things in here, like I said, I agree with, but a lot of them I simply don't. And I want you guys to make the decision for yourself. What do you think? Like I said, I put together a playlist that I'll probably stick over here with probably like 19, 20 videos on all different software that you can use for all the different software that Adobe makes, from Audition to Premiere to Photoshop and Illustrator and Lightroom and InDesign and yada, 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 right? All of them. Now, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to make more videos because you guys keep on asking me for it. And maybe delve a little deeper into other alternatives that maybe I didn't cover, or maybe things changed, okay? So if you guys want me to do that, let me know. I think that some of you are just really eager to find alternatives to Adobe, and I want to help you guys out if I possibly can. So like I said, don't forget, go take a look at his full article over on fstoppers.com. It is Clinton Lofthouse. I think it was a wonderful article. I love that he provided me with food for thought. Some of the stuff that he was saying, I agree with 110%. Perfect example how Adobe leveled the playing field, number one. And number two, that we all need to be grateful. We all need to take this time to learn a new trade or to hone our craft. And it doesn't matter what software we use, if it's Adobe or if it's an alternative. Use that software to harness your creativity and do something great with it, either for money or just simply for pleasure. So anyways, guys, if you enjoy my content, as always, please throw me a big thumbs up. That will be absolutely helpful and appreciated. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button so you can get all my content when it becomes available, and click the bell icon over here so when it is available, you will be notified of it. And finally, head over to my website, JCristina.com, where you can find all the photography tools I've invented for you and me over the years, and hopefully there's something there that you might like. And if there is, please pick it up and support me and my family. That would be awesome. Finally, use coupon code YT20 at checkout over at JCristina.com. You'll get 20% off everything in your shopping cart. Also, don't forget to download my ebook, 10 Tips Making Sharper Images, tack sharp, guys, for amateurs and professionals. Go to JCristina.com/ebook. Once again, JCristina.com/ebook. Any of my products you can find on my website, JCristina.com, or you can go to B&H Photo. You can also go to Amazon. You can find them just about everywhere. All right, guys. So anyways, I am out of here for this week. It is Friday. TGIF. Many blessings to each and every one of you. Take care.